Hello, everybody, and welcome to Comically Incompetent. My name is Doug. This is the podcast where each week we take a movie, we take a beer, and we talk about it. This is the second episode in our Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy with my special guest for all three episodes, Adam. Adam, how you doing?
Doing very well. Happy to be back. It's probably one of the most excited movies I've been, or the most excited I've been to do a movie on this podcast so far. This movie, I just have so much to talk about. Happy to be here with you. How are you doing today, Doug?
Doing all right. Doing good. Very excited for this one. I just finished watching it for the second time this week, which I don't think I've ever rewatched a movie so many times for this show before. But I want to get into the beer real quick, so I'm really excited about this one. Yeah, exactly. So I told Adam before we started recording these that he was going to pick the beer for all three episodes. But then I was at the store looking for a beer for a future show, and I found probably the perfect beer for a movie about Batman fighting the Joker. So if you're listening to the audio version, go to the Instagram and check it out. I'll have a picture of the can there. It's called Smilex by Pariah Brewing Company, and it's a beer based on the Joker. Like, how do you get any more perfect than that?
It's right? Perfect. I don't even think if I looked around all the breweries here, I could find something this close. So I'm happy to give the reins over to you for the beer on this one. But just be rest assured that I'll have it for Dark Knight Rises. Still got something to sip on today, so we'll be okay. Yeah,
there you go. Exactly. So we'll talk more about the beer at the end of the show. But now there's so much to unpack. I want to jump right into the movie this week. I told you before recording, I think this is on a short list of movies that I would consider perfect. There is nothing really about this movie that you can claim makes it bad, makes it not anything less than a perfect movie. I mean, yeah, like there's some things here and there that I'm sure anyone could really nitpick, but that's every movie. As far as like a perfect film goes, this is like the closest thing we'll ever get.
Yep, I think I agree, 100%. Even when I'm thinking back about parts I don't like, I can't think of a single moment, line, scene, actor, actress that didn't fit within the puzzle here. And having all of the backstory and everything we talked about last week on Batman Begins going into this movie just gives it that much more punch, that much more power, and we really hit the ground running from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, you and I said it last week when we stopped recording. We could talk about over an hour about the opening scene alone. The heist scene is amazing. Oh my god. I mean, you watch it and you're just like, you're in. From the first second this movie starts, you're in and ready to go. You have that bank robbing scene that is just amazing. And Heath Ledger as the Joker captures you from the first second he takes off his clown mask, and you're just like, you're in. I love that about this movie. You're in from the start.
Absolutely. And it's such a fun reveal because after he takes it off at the end, you see that he was in the heist the whole time. He was kind of masterminding it. You see where he was with that face, because they all have slightly different clown masks. But then when he pulls it off and he has, the real makeup and everything on there, and, talks right to him and he says, I believe that, whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger. And then boom, you're ready to go. Gets in the school bus and he's out. We're rolling. We're ready to go.
It is perfect. It is the absolute perfect way to start this movie. And like you said, if you look at this trilogy as one big movie, this is like right where you get going. This is like the start of the second act where things are really starting to pick up. And Heath Ledger by the way, I love Heath Ledger as an actor. I was so unsure of him as the Joker because I loved A Knight's Tale. I liked 10 Things I Hate About You. I liked him as an actor. I thought he was great, funny, handsome, that whole thing. But I didn't see him as a villain. The second he takes off that mask, he is creepy. He is haunting. You believe everything. Like even his little mannerisms, his little like, the way he talks, the way he moves his mouth, the way his tongue kind of like sticks out just the way he like moves, right, everything's freaky.
His breath.
Yeah,
it's absolutely awesome. I know that he spent a lot of time before this role preparing, and I'm pretty sure he locked himself away in like a hotel for about a month or two, just coming up with, like you said, all the mannerisms, the little nuances of the Joker, and it's evident that it worked, and maybe a little bit too well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for anyone in history who will have to play the Joker again. Like, Jared Leto, which, by the way, just first of all, I didn't like Jared Leto that much, if you exclude Heath Ledger as an actor, as the Joker. But he was kind of screwed to begin with. Whether he was good or not,
right?
He was going to be compared to I think probably the greatest comic book performance we're ever going to get. I mean, people will say like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man or whatever, but Heath Ledger's the Joker is the greatest performance I think we'll ever get in a comic book movie, at least to this point, the best we've ever had.
Right, and especially looking at the fact that, right, when you talk about Iron Man, you know, Robert Downey Jr. was kind of born to do that role. You know, he's kind of just portraying a version of himself. You know, in interviews, you kind of see that Robert Downey is very similar to Tony Stark in a lot of these ways. So, you know, acting as Iron Man and Tony Stark isn't a far stretch for him. But looking at Heath Ledger and the roles that he had up until this point, being, you know, typecast after Brokeback Mountain and, you know, trying to break away from all these stereotypes, and to completely embody such a layered villain, such a maniacal character flawlessly, is just absolutely incredible. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, there's just so much. You could talk about Heath Ledger's portrayal as the Joker for over an hour. Like, we're going to try and fit in as much as we can about this movie, and we're going to miss some things, so sorry about that, but we're going to try and get as much as we can in. Yeah, you have that opening scene, that bank heist, which is phenomenal, and then you move into, like, I think more like, I think like nuanced Gotham, because the last one we talked about being very dark and gritty and very like Christopher Nolan had the orange kind of tint over everything, and then this one it's very pristine. All the buildings it looks like in Midtown Manhattan in New York, like nice buildings, beautiful, like it's very pristine, very professional, and it's very different Gotham than what we saw, especially with Bruce Wayne now being in this penthouse because Wayne Manor burned down. So it's very interesting. It's very evident that a lot of legacy.
Yeah, it's very evident that a lot of time has passed since the ending of Batman Begins, just in the nature of the city, right? You know, and right immediately after that bank heist scene, you kind of see this compilation of, thugs in the alley. They're kind of scared to commit crimes. They see the bat signal in the sky and they know that he's watching and that the city is not completely under their control anymore.
Yeah, which I thought was an interesting way of kind of starting out this movie of Batman's cleaned up the streets. I mean, he's done a really good job of making sure that Gotham is not where we left it in the Batman Begins. So I don't think they strictly say how much time has passed since the events of Batman Begins.
But I don't think so.
I mean, you can tell it's been a while. Like, Batman's gone to work, and he's gone and basically pretty much cleaned up the streets, and there's parts that he didn't. They're scared of him already. And then in kind of comes this Joker out of nowhere who's going to throw the whole thing back into chaos, which I love. We also get that scene where we get Scarecrow. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it's fun from the the beginning where he's kind of underestimated as a villain. Just by Batman and everybody around him. He's like, I can't focus on one man. When I have the whole city to clean up. But it it ends up being more of a personal struggle, and they kind of have it out specifically for each other. But go ahead,
then we also get to see Scarecrow again, which I thought was funny because we have the copycat Batmans. How far the Scarecrow as a villain has fallen when like 3 copycat Batmans and the real Batman all know where this deal's going down. Like, none of this could have been secret. 3 fake Batmans and the real one all knew when and where this deal was going to happen.
Right, I call them the copy bats. That scene was really funny because I remember the first time watching, I totally thought that that was him because you're like, oh yeah, it's Batman right away. But I can't remember. One of them does something that's like a little bit off, and then
they use a gun.
Murphy's like, that's not him. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he's like, oh no, that's that's not him. And then they, eventually, disarm all of them.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Wayne shows up to save the day.
Yeah, which I love that shot of him falling through the parking garage.
So cool.
This lands on the truck. It's just so cool. This movie's so cool. Like, I finished the movie. The second the movie ended, like, you have like the Dark Knight title come up. I was just sitting there going, this movie's fucking cool. Like, it's just so cool.
It's just This is what you're prepared for after Batman Begins. We talked about last week, there's a lot of exposition and setting up the character of Bruce Wayne. You don't really get a lot of the Batman action that you kind of want. It's more of his personal struggle, his story arc to come into himself, but now he's ready to go.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about this movie, too, is that it takes away kind of the fan service. There's no more Wayne Manor. There's no more Batcave. It's the same gadgets we've seen before, adding in maybe like 1 or 2 different gadgets we hadn't seen.
It's like upgrading,
Yeah, so it's interesting that there wasn't a lot of new, like, Batman fan service, and if anything, there's less. They take away now is in, like, the secret underground box that's underneath
right.
a storage container basically, and
very
there's not a whole lot to
simplistic.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And well, what do you mean?
No, go ahead, man. Talk.
The box.
Yeah, just the box.
Yeah, I think it's intentional because this movie is not about Batman.
Yeah.
It's about the Joker. And I think that in the simplicity of his gadgets, you know, we're not going back to Wayne Manor. It's just showing that, you know, all that's kind of behind him, and now he's ready to take on bigger and badder threats after beating Ra's al Ghul in the last movie.
Yeah. And trying to take down the mob was kind of where this movie starts. And like you said, it's the Joker's just one man. He can't worry about the Joker until it kind of forms into the Joker's in charge of all these people. He's got everyone in his pocket, and he's this chaotic beast that's tearing his way through Gotham. And I like that kind of slowly Batman starts to realize, like, he's where I need to put my attention to. And the Joker's just wreaking havoc left and right. And I love the idea of throughout this movie, he always says like he doesn't have a plan. He's just there for chaos. But everything he does is so calculated and planned out. But Joker likes having that facade of like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. But he has everything planned to the last detail as well. It's such an interesting
He
way
kind of
to see
reminds
it.
me of like Jar Jar Binks' character, you know, just kind of dumb luck, you know, on the surface, dumb luck, you know, going through, but really behind the, you know, the facade, there is a cold, calculated plan, and he's one step ahead of everybody always.
Yeah.
You know, right when you think you're about to catch him, boom, he's got you right where he wants you.
Yeah. And we see that a lot in this movie. Every time Batman makes a move, Joker's there. Joker's done something. He's ready. He saw Batman's move, and he went 3 steps ahead. And I love that about his character. And we also have the introduction of Harvey Dent in this as Gotham's White Knight at the start. But
right, yeah, and I love Aaron Eckhart as an actor. I think he's fantastic and very much embodies you know, a great, you know, knight in shining armor. Politician at the beginning of this, right? And they have the, you know, the scene in the courtroom where they're trying to take down, you know, Falcone's the guy who's going to take the fall for the company. You know, his gun doesn't go off, and he's like, oh, bam, gotcha. And you know, in a very heroic moment. And then, you know, right after that, we kind of see his charm with Maggie Gyllenhaal, who's replaced Katie Holmes as Rachel.
yeah, and she did a good job. She was a lot less detective-y in this one. She was kind of just along for the ride, which is fine, but it was very interesting when in the last one, when Katie Holmes played her, they wrote her as she was going to go, and she was underground, she was in it all, she was doing it all, she was solving the case. Whereas this one, she was just kind of there with Harvey for most of the movie. It was an interesting change that they did when they changed. I feel like maybe when they changed the actresses, they thought the character should change a little bit with her. I don't know. Maybe that's just what Maggie Gyllenhaal kind of brought to the character, but I liked her character. She was a lot more of like, instead of like trying to like be the detective, she was a lot more there for Bruce and Harvey, and that was kind of her role of like mediating and being like grounding these two characters who were getting so far like thrown off their path, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah, and I think that it played more to their strengths that she was more invested in the relationship instead of the detective work in this one, especially for, you know, the climax of the movie at the very end. You know, it makes that scene more powerful when there is that love interest, because we didn't get a lot of that in Batman Begins. You know, you really kind of see the jealousy from Bruce Wayne's side. You know, I love that dinner scene where Harvey's like, I had to book this weeks ago, and then he's like, you know, pull up a couple tables. You know, like, no, they'll do it for us here. Yeah, like, they're pretty cool. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, you know how we were talking in last week in Batman Begins about Batman not doing a lot of detective work? Yeah. I thought that he did a lot more in this film. Yeah. You know, he's with Lieutenant Gordon a lot of the times. You know, he's pulling fingerprints. He's you know, reassembling. Like the fingerprint on the, you know, the shell casing for the gun, and he's kind of doing a lot of that behind the scenes. I think because he's threatened by the Joker's, you know, kind of twisted, you know, pathfinding and all of his maniacal plans, and he doesn't want to be one step behind. He's always trying to kind of outsmart him a little bit. So it was fun to see kind of that more detective side of Batman in this movie.
I think when you look at the last movie, Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul were very calculated in their moves, and Batman was able to kind of figure out what was coming next to then beat them in the end. Whereas he had to be a detective because he had no idea where Joker was going to go next or what Joker was going to do. So he was kind of forced into that role. If we get to see that detective, like you said, pulling the fingerprint off the bullet and working with Lucius Fox a lot more to have that technology and figuring out what's happening next and what's going to go down. And I like that part of it. It brought a lot more of I liked Batman a lot more in this movie than I did in the last one. Because I like Bruce Wayne in the last one, but Batman was a little... he was good, but I was really more interested in the villains. This one, Batman is definitely a lot better in this movie for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's very fun to see kind of him taking everything that he's already built and then building on it. Now he's going back, he's redoing all of his gadgets. He's seeing what didn't work the first time, what's going to work this next time. And I really like those scenes where he's down with Lucius Fox, kind of designing all the new little nuances of, the future of what he wants Batman to be.
Yeah, definitely. The next scene I really want to talk about is, I think, probably one of the most famous scenes in this entire movie is the scene where Joker goes to the mob meeting and he makes the pencil disappear, which people love that scene. Yeah, he comes in with a laugh and I'll make this pencil disappear and then slams the guy's head down the table. It's gone.
Magic. Yeah, that's just such a fun scene because, up until this point, Batman is concerned with taking down the mob, when he's, he's like, I can't worry about this one guy when I have the whole mob to take down in Gotham. But then right here, you see that the Joker is above the mob.
Yeah.
He's one step above, 20, 30 guys that are in that room. And, there's nothing that they can do about it because if they do, then they're all going up. I love how he comes in just so cocky, mocking the TV. He's like, I know a squealer when I see one, looking at Chen on the TV right after he's telling them about how he took all the money out before they, raided it. But that scene is fantastic just because it shows that he has no fear.
Yeah.
He is the embodiment of fear. So what does he have to be afraid of?
Yeah. And he's in immediate control of the situation. The second he walks in that room, he is in control of that room. And one thing about his character that I noticed a lot more in this watching is his complete lack of caring for dying. He puts himself in the position to be killed so many times, but he doesn't care because either way, I think in his mind he wins. I think he wants to die in some aspects. So if they were to attack him, he pulls the thing, all the grenades go up, he goes up, he still wins in his mind. Or he did what he did in the movie where he takes control of the room, takes control of that mob, and that's a win for him as well. I don't think in his mind he can lose, which is where that lack of fear is and that cockiness is because most people, a lot of villains, their only fear is dying and losing out on what they were going for. He doesn't have any of that fear, so there's really no way to lose. So he gets to be that cocky and gets to be that crazy when really there's no loss for him. He
uses that to his advantage because then there's nothing that they can hold over him. Right? He doesn't have anybody that he cares about. There's there's nobody that the mob could threaten him with. He has to, he has the upper hand in all of these scenarios.
Yeah. And
that scene's fantastic.
Yeah, just a phenomenal scene. When people think of this movie, they think of that scene as definitely one of the ones, because any scene controlled by the Joker is mostly what people think of when they think of The Dark Knight.
Yep.
And I remember when this movie was coming out, I think I said it last week too. People were saying it's too dark. It's the Joker's just this dark villain, and people were saying don't go see this movie. Immediately went and saw that movie, and I was blown away by his performance and the way he, like we said, controls the room basically, because when he's on screen he's in control, and I love that.
Right, it's riveting. His performance is just absolutely encapsulating. You can't look away, or he is in control of the scene, at any time that he's on. Yeah, you're absolutely right there.
Yeah, and I think the next scene that we really get to see that in is when he goes to meet, I think his name is Gamble, and he pretends to be dead on the pool table, and then he tells his first story of how he got the scars. When he's like, my father was a drinker and a fiend, and he's got the knife up to the guy's mouth, and that scene is dark, man. That is a dark scene. The story he's telling, then how he has the tryouts, if you will.
Right. Yeah, just breaks the pool stick in half and, drops it down. He's like, there's only room for one of you, in here. He's just insanely cutthroat, just kind of just taking all empathy or humanity away from these people just so they, are just working for him, and that's kind of, back to the opening scene where, he's the only one alive out of all of his henchmen.
Yeah.
That were in for that take. They all kill each other one by one, and he's the one with the last laugh.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that stems from he's a psychopath who, I think when you see mostly psychopaths in movies too, they understand people. And so he was able to plan out the heist and this whole situation by understanding how people think and what they're going to do and how they're going to act. He knew that guy was going to try and double cross him in the heist in the beginning. So he planned for that, and he was ready for it. He was ready for everything that anyone could think and do. And you see that a lot, especially, like, we'll get to it later in the movie, but the ferry scene. He was planned for any scenario of what those people did, and he was ready for it. And I think that's so creepy and crazy of his character to be able to, like, think of not just his plan, but what everyone else's possible plans could be as well.
Right. Yeah, and it's shocking to think, because just when you think that you have him on the ropes, you don't. And he's one step ahead of you there and knows your weaknesses, and you have nothing against him, because he doesn't have any. He's, like you said, he's not afraid to die. He doesn't have anybody in his circle that could be a threat to his plans. Yeah.
Which, I think, going back into Batman a little bit, we have that scene where he goes to get Lau back, and we see Skyhook for the first and only time.
Yes. Yeah, and that was it's kind of confusing. I remember watching that initially and just had kind of really no idea what was happening, or it seemed a little infeasible.
Yeah,
but I don't know. They kind of made it work.
Yeah, that was one of the few moments in Christopher Nolan Batman that I was kind of like, all right, you lost me with that a little bit. I don't know where that was supposed to be going. I mean, it was cool. It's cool when he jumps off the building next to it and, like, flies down into the building, explodes right at the right moment, he goes flying in, or when the Hook comes by and takes him, and you're like, it's cool, but you're like, I don't know how that would... The logistics of that don't make sense to me.
Right. Yeah. It was a little confusing, but, again, we suspend our disbelief in moments like these and these grand movies for just the, the awe and the, the power factor.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many moments in this movie that I think just grab you. And I think we have that scene where after Dent takes down pretty much the rest of the mob, like 150 or something people, and then we have the Joker who is starting to threaten all the people involved in there. And that scene is like, your heart's racing, man. Like, people are dropping left and right. The Joker's threatening people. We have that scene where the body comes and hits the mayor's window, which I remember in theaters when that body hit the window.
That was shocking. I jumped. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole theater went up. I jumped up to an upright position in the theater when that happened. I scared the shit out of me.
Right. And it's that shock value that gives the Joker just so much power and prowess, and just all of these little things. Right when you think you're detecting a clue, it's something that he planted. It's something that he put there specifically to get in your head, for his next calculated move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene got me. It gets me even, like, to this day. I'm just, like, casually walking around and then bam, it just hits you, right in the face. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, like it's still, like you said, it gets me. I still had to tell myself, like, I know it's coming. Don't freak out. I know it's about to happen. You're just waiting for it. It's so good. I remember.
Yeah, and yeah. No, go ahead.
When this movie came out, I remember I loved it so much. I tried to memorize, like, every line that I could. And I remember trying to memorize, like, the Joker interrogation scene, or, like, it's just everything I could, because I was so in love with, like, the writing and how Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan wrote this movie so well that, like, you want, like, the dialogue just hits you, and every scene and everything hits with such, like, a wow factor, and I love that about this movie.
Right, and it's just chock full of little moments at, like, hard times. It's a roller coaster of emotions, through the entire film. It's ups and downs. It's we're finally onto something, and then boom, we go right back down into the the depths of the Joker's plans. And then we see Batman, he's got this other secret plan. Boom, right back into the mob boss and what Harvey Dent's doing right here. There's no time to rest at all during this movie. It's one giant I mean, it's the climax, I feel like, of, the trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2.5 hour long movie that you're on the edge of your seat for 2.5 hours, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, even scenes that I thought were
just
slower.
one giant thriller.
Yeah. Even scenes that I thought were slower when I was, like... This is 2008, so I was, like, 14. I remember I was... Like, watching it now, I'm like, no, this scene's... Like, I remember I thought, for some reason, that the scene's kind of leading up to where he burns the money. I thought that was slow for some reason. Now I'm watching, I'm like, no, all of this matters. All of this is important. Everything builds on everything in this movie.
Yes, yeah, it's all exponential. Yeah, and one scene after another. Towards the end, it's like a whirlwind. We don't get a lot of that in Batman Begins. There's only kind of that one real end fight scene when Cillian Murphy, the Scarecrow, is releasing all the toxins in the air, and you see Batman flying over fighting Ra's al Ghul. That's pretty much all we get in Batman Begins. It's a very long exposition to set up the character. But this movie is just one thing after another, and I think the score in this movie is one of the best I've ever heard. It's just it sets you on edge. You have no idea what to expect next.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer went in a very different direction. This is a lot of like, I don't know a whole lot about technical terms for this, like scoring and stuff, but like it's like screeching but works, and it's like the Joker's theme is just basically like dun 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 dun, and like screeching then dun dun, like it's
right.
Anxiety inducing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very, but it's fun though. It's like a pounding in your chest, and you're just you can't wait for whatever's going to happen next.
Yeah, the way the music works is it builds the suspense that you'd have basically watching like a horror movie, but without being scared, but just being on edge, and I like that about it.
Right. Yeah, and I love that it doesn't neglect the same kind of fun little quips and humor that we had in the first movie. Like I love the scene where right after Rachel and Harvey are meeting at the restaurant, Bruce comes over with one of the ballerinas, and then the next day they're going to see the ballet.
Yeah,
and then it's like, oh, it's canceled because he rented them all out for the weekend. They're all on a private boat with him, just for his alibi to to be gone while he's doing all his Batman things. It's just very fun. Alfred's there with all of his great little lines, which kind of gives you a little lighthearted sense throughout it. I feel like it would be very tense kind of without these little moments here and there.
Yeah, I feel like weirdly enough, Alfred is the comedic relief of this movie, because even though he also has some very like intense speeches, like his speech about chasing the thief through Burma, like that's a very deep, very interesting story. But then he also has those moments, and Bruce gets some funny moments too. Like I think the funniest Bruce line is when he's gonna turn himself in, and Alfred's like, "You're gonna tell him I was your accomplice," and he's like, "Accomplice? I'm gonna tell him the whole thing was your idea." Like, I thought that still makes me laugh.
Yeah, I love that, and it's. I think you're right too in saying that Alfred is the comedic relief. Lucius Fox is there, but his quips are more clever. Than they are, funny. Like they're more kind of calculated. Alfred's more just like, gotcha.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not gonna say I told you so. But like, those are. He's like a bloody told you. I love those. Yeah. Such a fun role, and Michael Caine is brilliant in it.
Yeah, I mean he's brilliant. I think pretty much anything it does. And it's hard. I can't think of a movie that I did not like him in specifically. Even his like small bits. He had such a small, like almost you call it cameo in Inception, but he still did such a good job as that character, and he's so good at what he does. I mean he's been doing it forever, so he's got that talent.
Was he his dad in Inception? Leo DiCaprio, was he his dad? Okay.
Yeah, like
I remember
professor,
he was
right?
the professor, right? He goes, had a student, right, who was Ellen Page.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. I think it was his dad. Yeah. That's one I haven't seen in a long time. I gotta rewatch that one. That's probably
and it's really fun. That you mentioned
Nolan
Inception to kind of see where how much Christopher Nolan kind of came into himself in this film, and just kind of learned all of the creative liberties that he could take, and to put those into these kind of groundbreaking masterpieces that come after Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk, all of these just massive scale movies that I think pulled a lot of direction from The Dark Knight.
Yeah, definitely. He got a lot of his, I feel like pulled a lot of his, what ended up being his style from The Dark Knight. of which also I thought was interesting, and I know you probably all know this stuff, was they shot this whole movie in IMAX, which for a like regular big budget movie, for the audience who doesn't know, that's weird to shoot a whole movie in IMAX camera. To think about it, mostly up to this point, movies that used an IMAX camera were documentaries that could sit the camera down on a tripod and be still, because they're massive. They are, I mean,
Yep.
80 to 90 pounds. They're huge and heavy and bulky and awkward because it's film. It's 70 millimeter film, which the film alone is like this big. It's crazy. So the fact when you look at this movie and you look at the way it was shot with Wally Pfister, a lot of it is very stable and very still, but a lot of what they did is impressive because they had to mount a like 100-pound camera to a rig at the end of a truck. Or Christopher Nolan's the master of using it and putting a 100-pound camera on a plane in Dunkirk, or the fact that he will take a 90-pound camera and bring the audience with him wherever they need to go. He shoots everything practically, so when you're on a plane, it's not CGI. That camera is strapped to the side of a plane, and that's insane to me. And you see a lot of that in this movie of like using that camera to do some amazing things throughout this movie.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible thinking about that in a lot of like the close quarters scene. You mentioned the boat scene. That scene feels very claustrophobic, but then when you think about all of the production that goes into that, you're like, wow, how did they pack so much action, into the screen while also, having all the production equipment in there and all the, the PAs, everything that goes into making that scene. It just makes it that much more powerful and shows you how much more, calculated it was ahead of time, because it's not just like you have an iPhone that you can take into a chase scene and you have it, facing out the window. You have to think about all of this equipment ahead of time. Yeah, it's a great point you bring up with the IMAX.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people when they shoot digital, you can get like an 8K digital camera that's like this big, and you can bring it anywhere you want it to be. Whereas when you have an IMAX camera, that's like the size of a person you're trying to fit into wherever you are, as well as the cast and crew and everything going on. So that was kind of a side tangent, but I thought I always think that's crazy when you look at a Christopher Nolan movie and how, especially when we get to like The Dark Knight Rises, that plane scene in the very beginning, how that was shot practically with 2 bits of planes hanging and IMAX cameras, 100-pound cameras, like flying through the air getting these shots. It's crazy to me, but I digress. Yeah. So the next scene I think I really want to get into is what we kind of talked about last week of the way Joker handles crashing a dinner party.
Yes. Yeah. We mentioned it, last time, where in the scene where Ra's al Ghul makes his debut, kind of where Liam Neeson comes back and, pulls off his, metaphorical mask and says, it's actually me. You kind of blew up my whole house. Now you want to duke it out right now with all your guests here? Or do you want to make a statement and, kind of get him out of here, which is a very polite and cordial way to basically say, all right, 1v1 me, right now. You blew up my house. Now it's time for me to, wreck yours. Would you like to do this in front of everybody or not? And this could not, be farther from that. The Joker comes in and he owns the place. Yeah, he's shooting, like right when he comes in, just to set the tone. He's looking for Harvey's squeeze. He's like, where is Rachel? And then, she kind of steps out. It's so visceral, the scene. It's very, it just like puts you on edge. Everybody in that room is like kind of like cringing. They don't know what to do. Nobody can move because they're, afraid to die. And it's a fabulous scene, and in conjunction, with the very similar scene in The Batman Begins.
Yeah, watching last week how Ra's al Ghul comes in very gentlemanly, very like, this is how it's going to go down. And whereas the Joker just comes in 110%, eating food, yelling at people, shooting windows out, throwing people out windows. Like, it's just crazy how he comes in. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I love that they kind of picked that same scene because it really gives you a feel for the Joker's style. As if we didn't already have enough leading up to this point. But right here, you see how a villain would handle this scenario in a different way. But he doesn't even know that, Batman is Bruce Wayne. He's just here to mess with Harvey Dent. He's not after Bruce Wayne this time, which is, kind of different since the first time around.
Yeah, part of me feels like the Joker knew who Batman was, but it was more fun for him to pretend that he didn't. Like, do you get that vibe as well?
Could be. I kind of do, yeah. Especially, you know, in later on in the movie when he's, you know, he doesn't want that guy to, you know, reveal who he is on the TV because he wants to be the one to, you know, have the grand reveal of who the Joker is or who the Batman is. He's like, oh no, you can't spoil this yet. Like, I have so much more to do. It's either that he knows or that he doesn't care. Yeah. You know, it's not like he's not after whoever the Batman is. He's after the Batman. You know, his one simple plan that he presents to the mob when they have that meeting in the restaurant is, you know, we kill the Batman.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. Or he just didn't care. That's an interesting point, which I think is probably closer to the truth of he just wanted the idea of catching Batman, not so much actually catching Batman. I mean, he kind of says it at the end when he's hanging from the roof. He was never going to kill him.
Right.
He was just part of the fun.
Right. And he likes antagonizing him because he knows the Batman's regiment and his rules, you know, right? He always says, you know, you have one rule and you're going to have to break that tonight. Right. And so it's more about that personal attack on what, you know, Bruce Wayne has identified himself as the Batman, the morals that he wants to portray, and the Joker's kind of divisiveness to try to get to him and to say that, you know, you can't be this peer all the time. Like, you have to make a decision, and I'm going to be the one to force you to do it.
I think the next big scene we get is after everything has kind of gone down with killing the judge and the commissioner. We have that scene where they're celebrating the commissioner's life by having that, like, 21 gun salute, basically. And we get to see the Joker without any makeup on, which is weird to see.
It's very weird. Yeah, and you only see it for a glimpse.
Yeah.
You know, it's that whole scene right there, I mean, is almost, to me, as impactful as the opening sequence. It has that same thriller vibe. There's this big building with, you know, lots of windows. Everybody's kind of looking around like, you know, what's going on. There's a lot of, you know, police authority there, but it feels like nobody's there. You know, it feels like it's just kind of the Joker's canvas to, you know, do whatever he wants at this big, like, you know, put on this big display in front of a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's a good point what you said. I like the fact that, like, it's very quick cuts. Everyone's looking over their shoulder. No one's sure what's going to happen next, but everyone knows something's going to happen. And as the audience are watching, going like, what is going to happen? Now you're worried. You're kind of trying to catch a glimpse of something for longer than a second, but they never linger. The editor kept on cutting, and you never get the chance to, like, settle into a shot. And I like that till eventually it all just goes down. And then it's all happening so fast. Commissioner Gordon jumps in front of the mayor, and he takes the bullet. He's down. You think he's dead. The Joker's running. They caught this other guy. Dent's running, and it's just, like, a lot to take in. You're kind of, like, thrown for a loop as this whole scene kind of all of a sudden, like, dun, 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 you're kind of waiting, then it just goes down so fast. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah, and right before everything happens, you know, Batman discovers up in the, you know, the super tall building, all the guards, they like stripped of their uniforms, stripped of everything, and then that's kind of when you're like, oh shit, like something's about to go down.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a great scene in kind of introducing a lot of, like, how the Joker can really get anywhere. He's not hindered by anything. Yeah, you see him, he literally somehow someone gave him a gun and let him stand and be that close to everything, and he got through, and somehow it's like there's no way that he's not a part of a situation. He can be anywhere at any time. I think that's really what I took from that scene watching it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and, you know, coming off of the mob boss meeting where he comes in laughing, you're like, how did he get into this building, you know, with probably all of the key members of this gang and nobody stopped him? You know, like, how is this possible that he's this far ahead of everybody? You know, the mob does look kind of goofy, you know, especially that guy, the dogs. He's like, oh, you know, you know, and I think that's intentional to kind of make them look, you know, underwhelming in comparison to the Joker. But it is like he can be anywhere he wants. And, you know, just when you think that you've captured him, oh, you've actually put him exactly where he wants to be.
Yeah, exactly. And next we get that scene of the Joker interrogating that dude who I don't remember who that actor is, but he always kind of plays that kind of freaky dude. He's very, I don't know what it is about his look, but he's going to be in the new Suicide Squad movie, so that's be interesting. I think it's like
the guy who they put in the ambulance or something.
Yeah.
Not the ambulance, but then Harvey Dent jumps in and tries to interrogate him.
He was telling Harvey that Rachel was the next target because his name tag said Rachel Dawes. Yeah, I think he's playing Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad. That'll be interesting to see. But he did a good job of playing that, like, because he's supposed to be like that paranoid schizophrenic that what Batman says the kind of mind a Joker attracts, like the people who want to be working for the Joker. And I like that scene of this is where we first see Harvey kind of begin his descent. He's didn't die a hero, so now he's starting to live long enough to become the villain.
Right. That's such a powerful line. I mean, this movie is chock full of just those, those super powerful lines. And yeah, like you said, it's kind of fun to see the mind, the mind the Joker attract. I don't know. That's crazy. It's so cool.
Yeah, a lot of this movie is hard to put into words. It's just cool. Like you can't.
Just epic. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's so many lines like you were saying of just like that hit you. I think that line of like you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain is so powerful and so beautifully written. And I think that's basically the theme throughout the movie for Harvey. This is his turn. This scene is where he starts to, like, yeah, he's still flipping the coin and he's pretending like there's a heads and a tails, and we know that he's not really going to kill the guy. But the fact that he's even threatening him is so far off base from the Harvey we met an hour ago in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah, and I love that scene too where he flips it and then he goes, "Let's go again." Like it wasn't enough on the first flip. He's like, "Let's keep going." Like it's just, and then you can even see it in his face. He's like, "No, like please." Like he's getting into his mind at that point, and I think you're right, is when he kind of starts to lose his way, and he's just obsessed with the Joker at this point that he loses his sense of morality and right and wrong.
Yeah. And we also get to see this is kind of also the beginning of Bruce starting to think that Rachel's coming around to him. Because Bruce's whole plan is now Harvey is what Gotham has deserved. He's not, so he's kind of pushing Harvey into the position of like not the Batman, but like being the White Knight, and he kind of starts to fall for Rachel, and Rachel's kind of like not really gonna happen. We get that in the scene in the penthouse, until eventually she writes that note that's basically saying it'll never work.
Right.
Which I think is such a crazy scene. Especially when you hear what the note says toward the end of the movie. It's such a powerful scene and note.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard for. It's definitely hard for Bruce to take that in, because that's kind of his end game. That's kind of his end goal. If he kind of cleans up Gotham, it's his only chance at a normal life, I think.
Yeah.
It's his last opportunity to, eventually down the line, once, Gotham is in good hands, the authority has, control over the situation and he's no longer needed. And, I think that's kind of the sentiment that, they literally say, like once they no longer need Batman, then, we can be together. But for Bruce, it's almost a fact of he's always going to need Batman.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be there's never going to be a time when that perfect scenario is going to work out for them.
Yeah. And I think the next big kind of chunk, because we're getting kind of long here, is when now we have Harvey has pretended that he's the Batman, and now he's being moved, and the Joker has
taken the fall.
Yeah,
yep.
The Joker starts trying to kill him, and that scene of the car chase scene is phenomenal. Everything in that scene is choreographed so well. We end with the truck flipping up over itself as a practical effect, which is insanely cool. I love that.
So cool. Yeah. And it's a lot. I love that scene where he's standing in the middle of the road. He's like, he's like, kill me. He's like, just do it. Like, do it. And, because it's not that he wants to die, right away. It's he's not afraid of dying, but he wants the Batman to kill somebody, to kind of cut at his core. Like, if the Batman kills somebody, then the Joker wins, regardless whether or not he's the one who dies.
Exactly. That's what I was kind of saying. If Batman kills him, then Batman is a murderer, and Batman has lost. And if he doesn't kill him, then his plan still works, and he gets taken to prison, and the whole plan still goes about. And it's crazy when you think of it from that perspective of, in his mind, he can't lose. Even if he dies, he still won. He brought Batman down to rock bottom, and it's so crazy to me how in depth the Joker is in his whole plan. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it's diabolical. It's always one step ahead. You know, and it makes you like you are on edge. You're looking around everywhere because just when you think you're in a prison, or just when you think the Joker's locked up, that's exactly where he wants to be. You know, it's kind of horrifying.
It is, and he's creepy when he's in that jail cell, and they're like, there's no name, no fingerprints, no aliases, no anything. We have nothing on this guy. But his whole plan is still working, and there's that guy with the cell phone surgically implanted in him.
Right.
Everything is working exactly as he wants it to. And then we get to the interrogation scene, which I think is probably the greatest back and forth in a movie that I've ever seen.
Yep. Yeah, and I remember reading a lot about that specific scene, and that a lot of that physical interaction between Christian Bale and Heath Ledger was real.
Yeah.
You know, like slamming his head down on the desk and, you know, like, where is he? You know, like pushing everybody over. And that's when you kind of see the Batman lose it also. You know, like that's kind of when he locks out, you know, he puts the chair on the door and kind of says, you know, up yours, Gordon. Yeah. I'm taking this one into my own hands because, you know, you've kind of, you know, let this one go a little bit. And this is my last chance. But he, you know, he does it in such a way that the Joker thinks that he's winning. You know, he sees that he's getting to Bruce. He sees that he's getting to him because he's going all out and trying to hit him instead of actually solving, the case of where is Rachel, where is Harvey.
Yeah, and he sees the desperation that Batman is starting to have. He's no longer in control. He's not composed. He'll do anything at this point, even threatening to kill him, saying, "I'll break my run rule tonight." Like, just he's lost it. He's so desperate now to save these people, to save the hero Gotham needs and the woman that he loves. And
right, yeah, and the Joker laughing. Meanwhile, you know, through this whole thing, he's, you know, he like gets hit and he's like, yes, he's like, this is what I want to see, and it's shocking. That scene is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, which then we move into where we see Harvey and Rachel, and Harvey becomes Two-Face. I mean, that whole exchange that we get, especially when that's in that scene where Commissioner Gordon is talking to him, and you finally see what Harvey's face looks like when it's half burned after that scene, and which by the CGI, I think 90% pretty much still held up beautifully on that.
Oh yeah, it looks great. Yeah. And I think they do it in a very smart way to only reveal it when it's important. You know, he's not looking dead on at the camera where you can see the contrast. For a lot of his scenes, it's mostly just as like a reveal, you know, in that scene where he's like, you know, what did they call me down at the station? It's like, oh, Harvey, you know, like, no. What? He's like, what did they call me? And then, I think it does look great too. It absolutely holds up.
I remember that was such a shock value thing in the theater when he turns his face and you're just like, oh shit, especially because it holds up now. 12 years ago, it looked so beyond real. It was creepy.
Yeah, I mean, you can see all the tendons and everything, you know, pulling in his face, and the eyeball that's like looks like it's popping out of the socket, just like so crazy. And you know, to come from, you know, such a pretty boy face, you know, where he is, you know, Aaron Eckhart's, he's a good looking dude, right? And then just to have half of his face absolutely destroyed is just so jarring.
Yeah. And this is like his full descent, which I gotta talk about real quick. The scene where the Joker goes into the hospital. He's got full makeup on and a mask, and Harvey doesn't notice it's him until he pulls off the face mask. Right. Like, he's got full Joker makeup above the mask as well, and how does nobody notice?
Where he's like, oh, hey, nurse. Oh, whoa.
Like, that was the one scene that I was like, all right, you lost me a little bit with that. Like, how? Come on. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it was that for me, and the school bus pulling out at the very beginning of the scene when it just pulls out of
at the perfect time.
Pulls out of the bank. Yeah, and just like goes in line with a bunch of, and they're like right when the cops get there. But yeah, those are like the only nitpicks that I was thinking. But I do like that scene, and that it's pretty powerful. I mean, blowing up a hospital is a very I think kind of touchy, you know, subject, you know, regardless of time. Like even now, that scene holds a lot of weight. You know, even though they got everybody out, it's just that much, you know, opposition to authority that you're not blowing up a police precinct, you're not blowing up a, you know, the house of, you know, the judge or whatever. It's a hospital. Yeah. It's where they help people, you know. So there is no rhyme or reason for the Joker at this point.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you like you said, it holds so much power, and I think a lot of that comes from. I mean, we talked about Aaron Eckhart and Heath Ledger being amazing actors, and their back and forth has become as the two villains now, two full-fledged villains, is dark. It's creepy. It's so well done, and the way the Joker's like puts the gun to his head, he's like, you can basically say like, you can kill me, but if you notice, he's still holding the hammer of that gun because he's in control. Mm-hmm. Even if Two-Face pulls the trigger, it's not going to kill him, and he knows that. But he's ready to put everything on the line still to prove that he brought the best of them down to the bottom. That's that whole scene is about, right. Is bringing the best that Gotham had and showing even your best is bad. Like, I love that scene, and that it just, right. Oh God, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's so good. That it's powerful too. I mean, even when he has the coin where he had been flipping throughout the whole time, and they're telling him kind of his condition, right when he has it, and he looks at his coin and the other half is like burnt. It's I mean, that just hits you so hard. It's so chock full of little metaphors, little nods at these bigger themes throughout the movie.
Yeah, which as far as Two-Face goes, the only other version we had on screen was Tommy Lee Jones and Batman Forever, I think, with Jim Carrey as the Riddler. That was such a goofy, like, playful little like Two-Face version. Like, half his suit is normal, half his suit's very like jazzy and interesting. Like,
right? Yeah. Yeah, he's just kind of fun. Yeah, it's a very dark representation in this movie, but it absolutely fits within the stylistic choices that Christopher Nolan made.
Yeah, exactly. And he did such a good job of bringing, and Aaron Eckhart did a good job too of bringing that character from being such a cocky like hero in the beginning, like the guy who's just there to save the whole city, to the villain, like one of the main villains. Mm-hmm. He did such a good job of showing that deterioration of the character till we get to the point where he's flipping coins and killing people, and it's a crazy version of the character that we get.
Yeah, everybody's turning on each other.
Yeah. And I think that shows a lot in the scene on the ferries, where the Joker says, you each have the detonator to your own ferries, or to the other's ferry. Who's going to live? Mm-hmm. If you blow them up, you'll live. And I think, because I don't think they strictly say it, but my theory, and I think most people's theory, is that they actually had the detonators to their own boats. And if they tried to blow up the other one, they'd blow themselves up. And that was like the social experiment.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you can read this scene a lot of ways, because if the innocent people who are just getting ferried over, they're like, oh, we didn't do anything wrong, and then they blow up the other boat, then they're just as bad as the criminals on the other side. Yeah. It's a no-win scenario for anybody. The Joker he's done all the math problems and figured out the one solution. He's backtraced everything to make everybody and the thought was if nobody blew up the detonator, they would both go up, right? Or they were both going to go up regardless.
I think they were both going to go up regardless. I think if one blew up the other one would still blow up.
Right. But he's just seeing how much humanity he could take in in the meantime.
Exactly. And I think that scene when it goes down and no one blows up the other boat, I think that's the first time we see Joker lose. Mm-hmm. Is he was so sure, and Batman says he's like, you thought you could bring everyone down to your level. It's like you thought everyone was just as dirty as you. And it shows on his face when he kind of looks surprised for a second. I'm like, it's the only time we see like almost vulnerability of when he's out there and he's waiting for it to go, and he says the famous line of, and here we go, and nothing happens. And he just kind of looks like, for a second, you get to see like, wait, what? Like this almost like confusion for a second till he's like, I got a backup plan. And he starts to pull out the other thing, the other detonator.
Right, yeah. I remember on the DVD, every time you would press play on the movie, it would be that, and here we go. Like right when you started it. But yeah, that's the first time you see he has everything going his way perfectly. He's got the Batman. He's ready to show him, that Gotham is as bad as he says, or it can turn as toxic as he anticipates it to be, but then doesn't. And that's crazy right there. But you're right, he does have a backup plan.
Yeah, which I think we're talking about how in his mind he can't lose and he wants to die, and I think you see that a lot. I think where I really got that idea from was when Batman throws him off the ledge before he saves him, and he's just laughing and smiling as he's plummeting toward the street, and you're like, he still thinks he's won. Because to him, he still did what he set out to do. He still brought Gotham to its knees. And he knew that even if for some reason something went wrong, he had Harvey in the back pocket. And he's plummeting toward the street, laughing, and it's so dark and creepy that he's just laughing on his way down to die until Batman saves him and pulls him back up.
It's maniacal. There's a lot of throwing people off of buildings in this movie. I love the scene where he throws off who's the other mob boss that he's like holding up and like interrogating. He's like, oh, from this
Maroni,
side, you're not gonna kill me. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then he's like I'm counting on it, and just drops him. Like that was a really cool scene too. But yeah, like he said at the end, the Joker he wins in every scenario. If the Batman kills him, he breaks his one rule. The Joker wins. If he doesn't kill him, then he's still alive and can keep fucking with him for, as long as, they're still there. He has every scenario thought through.
Yeah. And like he says it when he's hanging upside down before his last line of the movie, where he says, he's still got Harvey. Harvey Dent is still a villain. And then he has his last line where, wait, what? Oh, wow, I'm blanking on it now that I need to remember. What's the last thing he says? Oh, yeah. What is it? As he's hanging upside down.
In which scene?
What?
Oh,
Oh, I remember it is. When he says, madness is like gravity. All it needs is a little push. And then he just starts laughing, and that's his last line of the movie. It's so creepy, everything he says. But that whole speech he has was like, this is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And that's
the last time we see him, right?
Yeah. Which, do you think, now as we're kind of getting toward the end, do you think that Christopher Nolan's going to use the Joker again? Do you think the Joker's going to be the villain in what was going to be the third movie? Or do you think he fully intended to kind of maybe use the Joker a little bit, but move on to a new villain for the third?
I think the second option there. I think the Dark Knight is dedicated to the Joker, and it kind of lives as its own in that, and that he wouldn't have wanted to try to recreate it because he kind of, like you said, did it perfectly the first time. And I think he might have used him as he did the Scarecrow in this film. We kind of get a little bit of, Cillian Murphy in the beginning of it, just to kind of, move you into it, because this trilogy is a trilogy and works so seamlessly with the three movies. I think it would kind of play into, Bane's character. I think Bane kind of would have overshadowed him, in a more just kind of massive scale way. The Joker is more mental, whereas I think, Bane is a much, bigger villain, it just on like a grand scale. I definitely think he would have been in The Dark Knight Rises, but I absolutely respect the, decision not to put him in, considering, Heath Ledger's passing.
Yeah. As we kind of move on in the movie, we get the scene of Two-Face threatening Gordon's family, and that scene was great. I think when you have Gary Oldman being able to like let him loose and like act the way you want, like he's so good at it. That was a great scene of him and Two-Face where he's like, don't kill my son, like just let the boy go. And you just see Harvey is basically reduced to nothing in this scene. He doesn't care anymore. Whether he lives, dies, whatever happens, he says there's nothing. He has nothing in that. But not in the same way the Joker does. You can see Harvey's still afraid, but he doesn't have that lack of fear that the Joker does, but he's trying to be in control like the Joker is. It's a weird kind of balance he brings in that scene.
Right, and it's kind of a testament, to the Joker's manipulative nature to see how quickly, the White Knight of Gotham, the politician who's going to save everybody and can be the front-facing, vigilante that Bruce can't, can turn, instantly, just, with the right push in the right direction, taking away, the right things. Like, the Joker killed Rachel. So you would think that that Harvey would be going after the Joker, but he's not. The Joker has convinced him that it was Gordon's fault. That he didn't get there in time, even though didn't the Joker tell Batman the opposite direction or the opposite addresses? Yeah, right. Because Batman initially was going to go after Rachel, ended up being Harvey because he was the only one who could get to either location fast enough. But the Joker is convinced Harvey that, oh no, it's the authority that didn't save her. If the cops were so great, they would have stopped me.
No, that was a great scene. I like the part where, when Harvey eventually falls and he lands with his, Two-Face, his Burnside on like facing up, And then Batman's like, we need to basically throw everything he did under the rug, blame it all on me, and keep Gotham having the White Knight, and turns it to the clean side of his face, the side that's like weirdly kind of smiling. Like, if you notice, Aaron Eckhart kind of had that little bit of a smirk on his face as he's laying there, and that was like such a crazy, like, it reminded me a little bit kind of how they did Gollum in the Lord of the Rings, how you kind of have those two sides to Gollum, Smeagol versus Gollum, and it's Two-Face versus Harvey in that last scene of, we can't have the world know that he turned bad, so just turn it to the good side and like pretend that he's good, and blame all the deaths, all the things he did on Batman. And I think that was such an interesting way to end it.
What did you think about that ending? I mean, because the alternative is, you know, all of Harvey's actions do come to light, and then, you know, his legacy dies there, and the Batman, you know, is still, you know, kind of on the you know, on the good side. It's really hard to see which would be a better outcome.
I think that Gotham was looking to Harvey throughout this movie to be their leader, and I think that no one fully, like, the city never fully accepted Batman. And I think even if you would have said, like, he saved you from Harvey Dent, who was turned evil, they still would never fully accept him. So I think saying that their hero, the man, saying that Harvey sacrificed himself for this city, everyone who the city already viewed him as a hero, keeping him the hero gave them hope. And I think I like that ending in that way, because I think if Batman would have just said, like, he was bad, he did it, I still don't think that now they would have no one to look to this as a city, because half the city didn't really like Batman anyway.
Right.
So I think he was someone that everyone could, like, Harvey Dent was someone that everyone in that city could converge on and put hope in. And if that was lost, they would have nothing, and then crime would come back and to, like, at a record pace. I think that's what that whole thing was. I think that's why that makes sense.
I agree with that, and I think it's important too, because the Batman is a facade of Bruce Wayne, you know, so that even by throwing Batman under the bus, you know, Bruce can still, you know, do justice on, you know, either his business front facing end or, you know, his vigilante side. You know, it's not like Batman can get caught.
Yeah.
You know, realistically, so that he can still operate in the same function that he had been, but just, you know, under different terms and conditions.
Yeah. And the line I think that we end on here is Gordon saying he's a silent guardian, a watchful protector, a dark knight. And then dun, 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 and you're just like, oh my god, this movie's so fucking good.
Right, and then he's running at the end. You know, he's escaping, he's going into the shadows. And, you know, at you definitely get a different feeling at the end of this than you do Batman Begins. Batman Begins, you're like, okay, here we go. You know, we're ready to go. At the end of this movie, you're just like, holy shit, like, that was crazy. Like, you definitely need some time to decompress before getting into the third act.
Yeah, definitely. I think that about wraps up the movie so far. Is there anything else you wanted to add in? Anything that you wanted to go back and cover that we maybe missed? Which I'm sure is a lot, but...
I think I always love the scene where you know, the guy working at Bruce Wayne's company approaches, you know, Lucius Fox with you know, I want $10 million you know, for the rest of a year for the rest of my life, and he goes, let me get this straight. You know, like, you think I love that scene. I think that's just, like, so perfect. You totally see in his face, he just, like, everything falls. You know, he's like, he spends his nights beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands, and your plan is to blackmail him. Good luck. You know, like, I love that scene so much.
Yeah, and then he goes and says that he's going to tell everyone who Batman really is on television which Anthony Michael Hall, the guy from Breakfast Club and Weird Science. He's the television personality, the news guy on that show.
That's right. Yeah, that's funny. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I think obviously I didn't really know that too much as a kid, but I like that scene. That character who was just there to basically just be annoying and...
Right.
That was really funny.
Yeah, and definitely for dramatic effect to get something on the TV at that point, you know, because then you know, the Joker comes on with you know, he has I can't remember if it was a news reporter or somebody that he's filming in that, like, warehouse. Yeah,
it's the news guy.
Or it was one of the cop. Yeah. That he has. That scene was crazy too. I remember watching that and I was like, ooh, like, I got chills the first time.
Those scenes are dark when he's recording the people and, like, basically torturing them on the camera in the movie is crazy. Those are dark scenes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours.
Exactly.
But I think we touched on a lot of the highlights of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many parts of me that I love, and I know a lot of people love this movie and have so many scenes that I'm sure I wish we could have gotten to, but hard to fill that in within our kind of time frame. So I can't wait to talk about Dark Knight Rises next week. I'm sure we'll bring up Dark Knight again.
Absolutely.
Next week.
It'd be great to round it out. Yeah.
So I think we'll move into the beer now if you're cool with that.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, this is from Pariah Brewing Company. They are down in San Diego, California. This can is just perfect, man. It's so jokery and beautiful. The beer is called Smilex. It is a 7.5 alcohol by volume. I'm reading from the website now. It is a Nelson Sauvin focused hazy IPA with notes of white grape, lime zest, lychee, and it'll put a smile on your face. It is very, very good. Phenomenal. It says I should enjoy in a glass, but I didn't do that because I was going to put him in the Batman glass. Then that felt weird putting a Joker beer in a Batman glass. It felt wrong.
Maybe that's what he would want.
It's what he'd want, but I can't let him win.
That's true.
So I just drank out of the can because I thought this was just so perfect. So, yeah. Pariah Brewing Company's down in San Diego, California. If anyone lives, I know a lot of our listeners live in SoCal and California, so go check them out if you can. If not, I'm sure they sell cans all around the area. I think they are open for takeout, and I don't know if they ship. They have an online store, so it looks like they actually do some shipping. So that's pretty cool. If you live in Southern California, go check them out. Very good beer. It looks like they go to San Diego County only, so if you live in San Diego County, I'd highly recommend them for shipping. This beer is fantastic. Great IPA, very light. Very like fruity, which is interesting for an IPA. Wasn't too heavy, wasn't too bitter. So really like that. And yeah, definitely go check them out. This beer is fantastic and absolutely perfect for the show. So yeah, I think that about wraps up our Dark Knight episode. So real quick before I wrap out though, don't forget we are on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. New episodes every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, and next week we'll be talking about the Dark Knight Rises to round out our Dark Knight interview series, and then at the last week of January I'll be taking a week off, but then the month of February my dad and I will be doing the Indiana Jones quadrilogy. So that's the future of the show so far, so get excited for that. So Adam, thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, like I said, very happy and grateful to be here for this movie. One of my favorites, probably my third favorite of all time. I just absolutely love talking about this movie. And like you said, it's, really hard to get bored of. I could watch it again tonight, again tomorrow, and just, see new things every time and absolutely love the experience. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
See you guys next week. Bye.